good Yantif, good Chodesh. It's an honor to be here tonight. Okay. In the year 1918, a ship arrived on the shores of America. A young Jewish woman and her new husband, ready for a fresh start. They left behind the ways of their ancestors to pursue the American dream. Together, they built a life here. They had 3 children, and they owned a pharmacy. And the proceeds that were left after caring for their young ones were sent to Europe with the hopes that the rest of the family would join them here, but most were lost in the war. Those 3 children each went on to build families of their own. And in the next generation, many of their descendants were so assimilated that intermarriage became the norm. At a very young age, the eldest great-granddaughter started to question the environment in which she had been being raised. Something felt wrong, alien, yet she couldn't quite put her finger on what was bothering her. Fast forward to age 16, and the search grew fiercer. She had to find the truth. Why was she here? What was her purpose? Did it matter that she was a Jew? Just maybe it did. That search led her to a Shabbos meal in Morristown, New Jersey in the year 1995. Her hostess was deep and sincere, and she thanked God for her food after she ate, which left a huge impression on this young woman. They spoke about God, they spoke about the Rebbe, they spoke about the purpose of life. A few weeks later, her hostess bought her a set of Shabbos candles, and although major changes were still far off, her life from then on would never be the same. She went on to pursue a career in natural medicine, studying deep in the mountains of California, her dream school, or so she thought. Yet as she tried to focus on her studies, she could not get the piercing eyes of the Rebbe from the picture in her hostess's house, his living room, out of her mind. He seemed to go with her wherever she went, compelling her to remember who she was. A bit stubborn by nature, it took some time to heed the call, but eventually she did. Fast forward to this evening, and here she is speaking to all of you. What is it that compelled me and so many others to return to the true path? What is it that stirs within us? In a mimer of the Rebbe, on the pasuk V'haya bayom hahu from the year 5728, or 1967, the Rebbe explains that the great shofar already started to blow, beckoning Jews from all over the world to return, whispering, "Return, my children, return." In a sicha given on Rosh Chodesh Kislev in the year 5752, the Rebbe refers to it as the air and the wind of Mashiach, our Redeemer, the one we've been waiting for since the beginning of creation. We live in very special times. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Hakhel year 5783. What is the nature of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Chodesh HaGeula? Chassidus teaches us that anything that happens to the Nasi, the Melech, the head of the Jewish people, has relevance to all Am Yisrael. We also know that if something significant happens on a day, that means that day carries that energy, that potential from the beginning of creation, and in fact, it gets stronger each year. What happened on Rosh Chodesh Kislev? We all know the beautiful stories of how the Rebbe completely defied nature and triumphed in a wondrous way. As Dr. Weiss shared, most wouldn't have even survived such a heart attack, let alone come back stronger and more vibrant than before. The king is the heart of the nation. Our king, our heart came back stronger than ever. He was renewed like the new moon. The Rebbe teaches us that Mashiach is compared to the moon, that in the full Geula, the Jewish people will be removed like the moon through Mashiach Tzidkenu, due to his effect on us all, which awakens our hearts and souls. Let's take a closer look at the story of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. We all know that the Rebbe did not want to leave 770. We know they tried to convince the Rebbetzin to let them take the Rebbe to the hospital against his wishes, and we know she refused to upset the Rebbe. In her words, I have never upset him, and I don't intend to now. That's some good marriage advice there. Rabbanim came to Paskin that the Rebbe had to go to the hospital, and the Rebbe asked them not to, because then he would need to go. Obviously, the Rebbe was not going to go against the Psak Din of a Rav, so they didn't Paskin. So they called Dr. Weiss, and he came all the way from Chicago on Yontif. Why? Because they knew Dr. Weiss would have the emunah to listen to the Rebbe's instructions in his own care. So the Rebbe stayed in 770 and received care there. Meanwhile, around the world, Am Yisrael was praying their hearts out. Not just Lubavitchers. I just heard a great story from Rabbi Paltiel that Rav Moshe Feinstein announced that he would encourage his students to do miftzayim. That in the schus of doing activities that the Rebbe lived for, this would bring refuah. That's amazing. What was the miracle of Rosh Chodesh Kislev? Was it the unusual faith of the doctor, the dedication of the Rebbetzin, the Rabbanim's humility to heed the Rebbe's request, the tefillah of Am Yisrael, or the sheer unfathomable greatness of the Rebbe himself? I think we will all agree that it's all the above. And in this, we have the secret of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Chodesh HaGeula. It's the secret of the unity of us all when we come together as a nation with our Melech leading the way. In the Sicha from Rosh Chodesh Kislev from the year 5752, the Rebbe explains that the true and complete redemption comes through each Jew revealing their spark of Mashiach. But what does this mean? How does this also go along with the famous words of the Rebbe and the Yud-Tes Kislev Sicha from the same year that we are already in Yemos HaMashiach? O Zion, the Rebbe says it, we're in Yemos HaMashiach. So if we're already in Yemos HaMashiach, and the way to have the fullest galus is to reveal our spark of Mashiach, that means that the Geula is unfolding through each and every one of us. What does that look like? It can be as simple as taking care of the physical needs of your fellow Jew, or as complex as building a Chabad house. When we first moved to Manhattan to start our Chabad house, we functioned out of a tiny basement. As the years went on, our attendees grew, but the space stayed the same. Buying a space the size we needed seemed like an impossible feat. We knew somehow, someday it would happen, but we didn't see how. Especially because what we needed actually did not exist in our neighborhood. What we needed was a big open space, a loft, not a townhouse. Townhouses are tall and narrow and would not fit our purposes. Our neighborhood was full of townhouses, but did not have any lofts. In our small basement, my husband had a note above his desk in a little closet that we turned into an office. It was tiny. I'm not sure it was even big enough to mandate a mezuzah. The note was taped to the wall, and it said, "The salvation of Hashem comes in the blink of an eye." In 2008, during the recession, we got a call from someone who wanted to help us buy a building. It was a good time to buy, he said. Prices were down, but we still had an issue. What would we buy? There was nothing available that fits our needs. One Shabbos, shortly after this, my husband was taking a walk with a student of ours. They looked up and they saw a new building that had just been built in our neighborhood with 2 large commercial loft spaces available for sale. Our mini mikdash came right out of Shemayim and landed on our block. We chose a date for the opening of our building based on the date we thought would be most convenient for our donors and friends to join. We realized later that we had chosen the date that corresponds with the 5th Aliyah of Parshas Truma. So we were almost ready for the big day, the grand opening of our beautiful Chabad house. But we had a small problem. Part of the design of our Chabad house was to have exposed beams. We had told the designer we wanted to create a fusion of Jewish warmth that also had in it the feel of our neighborhood. The exposed beams were considered hip and in style and a very important aspect of the design. But in order to paint them the color that matched the other elements in the building, we needed to put many coats of very unattractive, bright white fireproof paint. And they needed to be approved by the fire department. They kept coming, not approving, we didn't put enough on, we had to put more on, they came back, they didn't approve it again. Finally, it was the day before the opening of our building. These big white beams were everywhere. It was like really a part of the design, and it did not look very nice. That day, the fire department finally approved our beams. If you look in the aliyah of that day, of Parshas Truma, the opening words were, Va'asisa es hakrashim. The vertical beams for the Mishkan made of acacia wood needed to stand upright. We got approved that day. We had a new small problem. The beautiful parochas. And we had ordered many months before. We were organized, okay? Had still not arrived. They had an inscription in the memory of one of the main donor's mothers, so we really wanted them to be there for the opening. If you look in the aliyah of the day of the opening of our building, it says, Va'asisa parochas. They arrived that morning. The message was loud and clear. We were participating in something much grander than us. In a sicha from Parshas Ba'alascha, the Rebbe says that every Jew's life is crafted through miracles, and that if he or she doesn't notice it, it's because they are not paying enough attention. In the same way, and really it's the same inyan, the Geula is unfolding around us and through us. And the Rebbe says nothing is left to do but for us to take notice and accept this as a reality. There's a great story of Rabbi J.J. Hakhel. He was the MC of the Lag BaOmer parade in front of 770. And one year his mood was very down. He was nervous, the parade wouldn't turn out well, that the children would not enjoy it. All he kept seeing was the flaws on all the floats, all the issues that could happen. I think we can all relate to this. Being in a state where all we see is the flaws, all the issues, the unresolved problems. When the Rebbe came out to address the crowd, Rabbi Hakhel was feeling very anxious. And then all of a sudden, things started to turn around. Something about the Rebbe's presence caused his mood to shift. He wasn't sure if it was the Rebbe's smile, his aura of goodwill, or simply that the Rebbe was there. At the end of the parade, Rabbi Hakhel turned to the Rebbe and asked him if he had enjoyed the event. The Rebbe responded, very much. Then Rabbi Hakhel said, thank you for schlepping me out of my troubled mood. The Rebbe raised his hand in surprise and said, schlepped? Uplifted. I uplifted you out of your mood. The Rebbe uplifts us, allows us to see the Jewish people and the world through his lens. A people whose tshuva has been completed, a world that has been refined and is now ready for the Geula Shlema. So tonight, on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Chodesh HaGeula, the night that Mashiach, Tzidkenu, and the Jewish people are renewed, we are endowed with a whole new chayas and strength to finish off the job of opening our eyes and the eyes of the Jewish nation so that Mashiach can do his final shlichus and take us out of Gullus. May it be tonight.